Efecto Cascada.
Un podcast de Explore.
Alright, so dear Explotters, welcome once again to the latest episode of Efecto Cascada. This is a podcast where we dive into the forefront of innovation, share insights from entrepreneurs, and uncover cascade funding opportunities. As you all know already, in each episode we try to explore the latest trends in the digital stream, the arts, and transformative technologies that are shaping our future. So broadcasting from Pamplona, Spain, we strive to reach a global audience starting from European Union projects. So today we're continuing our dive into the future of immersive learning through this time the XR2LEARN project, which supports trailblazing initiatives building XR-based educational tools for high-impact sectors. So this is this time the second part of the XR2LEARN introductory episode that we had back last year with Ioannis Tasianakis, where he had the pleasure to dive into the all details last year. So if you haven't watched it yet, you're more than welcome and free to do so. But today we're welcoming winners from the first open goal in a special online roundtable. We'll be exploring CARATE, an ambitious training solution for the aerospace sector, and XR for HRC, focused on XR transformation of industrial training. Two projects, one shared mission, unlocking human potential through extended reality. So let's give a big round of applause to the team representing first of CARATE project. We have with us Fridolin Wild. He's the chief researcher at Wicked ECS and XR pioneer behind Mirage XR. Then there's Mikhail, Fominykh, coordinator of XR 3D R&D at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, NTNU, and leading the immersive tech for learning lab. Then there's Stephan Pascall, CEO of Wicked ECS, with decades of leadership experience at the European Commission and, the British Telecom. But we also have with us and representing, as I told you, XR for HRC, Berk Kaan. He's, the coordinator at Leader Technology in Turkey, driving innovation in XR for industrial training. Right, so Fridolin, you've been at the forefront of XR in education. Could you please walk us through how the idea for the CARATE project evolved from, Wicked and Mirage XR?
Certainly, Paula, and thanks for the invitation to speak on your podcast. Very much appreciated. For me, the journey began probably a decade ago. I was coordinating the last European-funded network of excellence in technology-enhanced learning, looking at the future of the sector, of what we need to do, how we need to shape up the research agenda to lead over the coming decade or so the frontier. And there were, amongst the grand challenges that we nominated, a number of things continuously coming up. They had to do with analytics, they had to do with 3D printing, they had to do with AR and VR and smart glasses and wearable technologies. So I started dedicating a lab to that, a performance augmentation lab at the Open University, where we investigated how we can best make use of these technologies to augment human performance, to help people learn better, train better, and support them. And over that decade, I think we achieved quite a number of things, including we had a European-funded project called Wicked, where we started investigating how we can make use of these technologies in health, in airplane maintenance, and in space at a rather early technology readiness level, so really prototyping things, including hardware. And in the recent years, I think with the breakthrough we've achieved, we set out to really make it work in the space sector, and that's why we conceptualized CARATE and our submission to XR2LEARN to see if we can have another go at it that lifts this to the next level. And obviously, space is an exciting environment, but it's also a very harsh environment. That's very hostile. On this planet, there's nothing alike that is challenging and hostile. and the whole sector is going through a bit of a paradigm change where the approach to training and education has to change, and has to change for the reason that we're turning our attention to deeper space missions, first going to the moon, maybe going to Mars in our lifetime as well. And that requires a shift away from the on-stock training that is prevalent in industry, and towards more flexibility and autonomy to be able to cope with the harsh challenges of outer space. And effectively, they say training time required for a mission on the International Space Station is probably like 2 to 3 years. But if we go to Mars, it would be 6 to 7 years plus travel time. And slowly we're in a window where it becomes almost not feasible anymore to do it the traditional way. Therefore, solutions with smart glasses where you train on the fly, live on your mission in situ is the thing to go for. And that's what we conceptualize karate for, and that's what we built karate for.
Awesome, thank you very much. Rather interesting. I would have never expected such a complete project and going to the outside space when XR. But Mikhail, welcome. So you coordinate immersive tech research at NTNU. For you, what role does academia play when shaping XR solutions like CARATE? How did you come to be involved here?
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation and for the question. Yes, we do have in the CARATE projects also the interplay between industry and academia and research, and we have extensive research background that we brought into our product and the CARATE project. I think in most advanced or cutting-edge technology fields, academics playing a key role with innovation and prototyping and concept development and proving them. And I think XR is not an exception. The challenge for academia is, of course, to bring the research results further into practice and further into complete products that are usable by the target audience, by the end users. And I think in at least in our experience, it allows us to be certain in which direction we go, to understand the challenges and to the and being able to work in a way that we base our technical decision and our innovation decisions on empirical research and on the data. Mm-hmm. I think that's the key role. Of course, could be more interconnections between business and academia. For me, it's this one.
Yes, definitely. And we're having for CARATE 3 cornerstones because now there's Stephan as well with us. And after the academic parts and the forefront of XR, we have Stephan. And with you, your unique perspective from the commission and enterprise, what drew you to a leading company like Wicked, ECS, and then how did CARATE align with that same vision?
Thank you, Paula, for the opportunity. I'm very glad to actually meet you first, and also to have the opportunity to just explain a little bit my long journey. It did start about 40 years ago. I'm an electronics engineer, PhD, I think, in artificial intelligence, and then after that in, say, space technologies. And then I was being actually recruited by the European Commission, and I was up in research programs, running projects, as a project officer first, and after that, I think as head of sector, and then as a head of unit, really having a lot of projects under my command. Mm-hmm. The thing that I found at the time, it was that a lot of projects, they will spend the money, they will show very good results on paper, but very, very few, they did become something. Another time, I was really trying to find projects that finally they became products. And it was very, very difficult. So now when I left the commission, I set up a company, Europlan, that I thought that I could help in that mission, getting money from the commission to become products that they will use export potential and as well that they will give employment. So in that respect, I did get involved in the Wicked project. And so that is really the place that we all came together. Fridolin, also Mikhail and some others. It was an exciting time, a lot of new ideas, a lot of things were happening. And finally, there was a prototype. Okay, it was a basic prototype, but there was a prototype. And I thought, here is the opportunity. Let's set up a company to actually commercialize it. So that was the first part of the dream. Okay? And then we set up the Wiki TCS. Now, what it did actually attract me to Wiki TCS, it was the quality of the young people that there were in Wiki TCS. Fridolin, of course, Mikhail, and many others there. It was quite exciting with a lot of dreams to make it happen. So that is what it really actually drew me to it. Now, how does karate align with my vision? Since I was a little boy, I was launching rockets. You know, a little dangerous hobby. And my mother used to be quite afraid, and my grandmother used to say, "These are the games of the devil, my son. Don't play with it." So, and then, of course, I did have the opportunity to be part of a company that it will be associated with space. Now, what does the company do? We try to actually make space safe, because a lot of people, they don't realize how hostile space is. Fridolin, he did explain very, very briefly that is a very severe environment. For example, that if you sit in the sun, say, suppose you are in space and you do face the sun in the front of you, that will be 1,000 degrees hot, and that means up in the back, it will be minus 273. Can you just imagine the sort of gradient that you have basically within your body? So it is quite a hostile environment. Therefore, the kind of the training is very thorough and very, very expensive. So some of the objective is to make space safe. The big objective. Second objective is to make it affordable. Third objective is to make it easy and to make it fun. So XR, the karate, we hope that you will actually provide that.
All right, but we also have Berk Kaan with us. So hi, Berk. And could you please tell us a bit about, well, your professional path and more specifically how the XR4 HRC fits within the work that you lead at LiDAR technology?
Thank you, Paula. I'm happy to share, actually. I studied international relations in undergrad, and I was always fascinated by technology. Things like immersive media, video games, simulations, these were areas I followed closely, even as a hobby. And I've been working at LTG, short for Lidar Teknoloji Geliştirme, for about 2 years. And LTG was actually where my professional journey really started. The company is a tech-driven SME based in Eskişehir, Turkey, and we are specializing in XR software and flight simulation. When I joined LTG, I started working as a project development and management specialist, and XR for HRC became the very first project I led. So it has a very special place in my heart, actually. And thankfully, with the trust and the support of amazing colleagues, we were able to deliver something that not only worked, but made an impact. Now I'm working as the Director of Business Development, and I'm fortunate to be leading some of our most strategic initiatives. And XR4HRC became a milestone for us, actually. It helped us build visibility across Europe, led to new collaborations, and laid the foundation for our Cascade funding experience. Now we are trying to find, more opportunities to show our technical capabilities across Europe and globe, actually. And XR4HRC set the, foundation for our technical, capabilities, actually. Now we are aligning with the XR4HRC's results in our strategic map, actually.
So to the CARATE team, right, so CARATE, as you were explaining, takes XR into space. What's, let's say, the core mission behind the project, and how does it reimagine training for astronauts and the aerospace professionals?
When we set out to defining what CARATE needs to do, we set focus on a number of aspects. And I think one of the aspects that makes the product so engaging and playful and fun to use is, in fact, its collaborative mode. The possibility that you can join ranks with someone who is offsite. You can bring teams together that are dispersed, that are in the US, in Japan, in Europe, in companies, in space agencies, trainers, together with the astronauts, people who are responsible for payload engineering, for the rockets, for all other sorts of things, and effectively give them their own representation, their own avatar that they operate in a virtual shared physical space. By doing that, I think we engineered a solution that is just in itself fantastic. It has this quality that you have a sense of presence of the physical space as well where you are, just by having a corporeal representation of your communication partners with you in the room that walk around, that walk and talk. We have the possibility as well, and that's maybe the innovation number 2, to switch on a digital twin of the environment. So for anyone who is offsite, they see a representation of the physical space. They can relate to objects in that physical space. They can say, here, look at this part. This here is the screw you need to open. And by that, the whole communicative, collaborative approach becomes something entirely different, something that doesn't suffer of the usual fatigue that we have in these online meetings. For example, in these online meetings, we suffer of a number of things. We usually see people way up close, way too often. We constantly look someone very close into the face. That's a bit unnatural for us humans, and it stresses us socially. We usually also don't see ourselves all the time. So the proprioception gets messed up. We pay attention too much to our appearance and self-consciousness, and we don't move about. Many of the effects that create video conferencing fatigue, they don't apply in the same way to meeting in 3D, where the full body avatar representation that we created that interpolates with a bit of machine learning and smart algorithms where we are in space, but also uses sensors integrated into the devices to capture hand movement and does lip sync and so on. This all creates a very engaging, very entertaining, very fun to use, very direct way of communicating. And that certainly, together with the digital twin feature, is one of the key innovations that we engineered into the product. And if I may, I'll pass over to Mikhail to say a bit more about our artificial intelligence facility.
Sure.
We have to.
Oh, thank you, Fridolin. Yes, as Fridolin was describing, we have a collaborative mode where you can imagine in a scenario that some collaborators are present in a physical training module or even in space, and some are called in from remote locations. And in some scenarios, it's impossible. So you can't get the necessary expert or a necessary trainer to be present at a specific point in time to assist you to answer the questions, to guide through certain procedures, and so on. And for this purpose, we implemented a spatially aware, artificially intelligent instructor who looks also like a normal human and could behave like a normal human. And the astronauts or the trainees and the other users of CARATE could interact with this AI in sort of the same way they would interact with a live instructor. We have, unfortunately, some delay, as sort of understandable because of the processing time and communication time between through the network. But you would interact using your voice. You would hear the responses, and we have also a few more features in the pipeline that this AI character would also be able to point you at certain things in your physical environment and be able to assist you and guide you through steps of procedures, for example.
Yeah, honestly, I would love to try a demo of it. As someone who's never tried XR, it sounds just like the future. But yeah, you're not just, let's say, saving costs because, as you were saying, Fridolin, you're also focusing on mental health, perhaps, when you're having physical meetings or you might be stressed or having some perceptions that make you feel uncomfortable. This just goes beyond that and is going to help, let's say, humanity and anyone who's able to go to outside space.
Certainly, the sky's the limit. I think there are many other verticals where this could be applied. Maybe Stephan, you could tell us a bit more about other areas where we see potential for this.
Well, I think it's basically medicine is one of the areas that it almost actually cries for help, I would say. I mean, we were discussing the other day with one of the hospitals in Dublin about the possibility of saving babies using actually AR. Because as you know, some of the babies, they do have respiratory problems when they're actually born, and they will need this intubation. And intubation is very difficult, and you need to be very well trained so that you could actually get the tube in a little mass, which is almost half a kilogram, and is actually moving around and is crying and is producing a lot of liquids. And it is quite a difficult situation, especially for the young doctors when they see the situation. So to really have some kind of an AR facility that you can see, well, firstly is to actually train, not in a kind of a doll, because you know what they do at the moment is a sort of doll, plastic doll, which is not the same, because you know, and then you will try to actually do that, and they can't see, of course, is what that is happening inside the doll when they will put the tube. Now, you know, with AR, you could have a look at the body of the baby, and at the same time, you can have a look in the inside, so you can see the probe going in, and how do you actually guide it through, and so on and so forth. I mean, this one is a great help, and we are now actually talking to them how we will just apply this to their particular case. Okay, so
Yeah,
this is one application.
This is great.
There is some sort of another application, of course, is that if you send some sort of complicated machinery somewhere far away, some sort of, say, jet engine, you send it somewhere far away, say Tokyo, from the United States, you need to normally send a number of technicians with the machine, with the engine, so that they will show them how basically, some of the servicing and so on and so forth. You don't need to do that any longer. You can send an avatar. That means you can be actually sitting, say, in the factory of Rolls-Royce, and then there is, the instructor via his avatar. He can then instruct the people how to service it, etc., etc. So I mean, this one is a sort of second application. I mean, there are really lots of applications. There are, I think, as many as your imagination.
Yeah, no, honestly, and it might also serve not just for the training of an action, but also if you'd like to go through it once again through the lesson, or assistance from your AI trainer. I'm sure you're free to do that. All right, but now let's shift to Berk because, XR4RC aims to address real industry challenges this time through XR-based learning. So, Berk, what specific gaps in current industrial training were you trying to solve at first? And how does the project tackle them?
So when we looked at existing industrial training practices, especially those involving robotics, actually we saw three issues. First one, the access. Trainees rarely get to work hands-on with real robots early on. Second one, safety. These machines can be dangerous if not handled properly. And the third one is methods. Most training was still based on printed manuals or slideshows, not exactly the most engaging format, actually. XR4HRC was our way of bridging those gaps. We developed immersive VR and AR training scenarios based on a real industrial robotic system and set them inside a digital replica of an actual robotics lab, the Intelligent Factory and Robotics Lab at Eskişehir Osman Gazi University. What's interesting is that the project wasn't just a tech exercise, it was very much a co-creation process. SOGI for Lab provided the robotic systems and defined the training needs based on how the lab actually works. Then we had Best Institute from Austria, a leading vocational training provider, who helped us shape the scenarios using proven didactic models. So it wasn't just immersive, it was pedagogically sound. And the final output was a set of XR training scenarios that could be used both remotely and on-site. So for example, learners could use VR to train off-site, then reinforce the knowledge later on the factory floor using AR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just see very common features among these completely different projects, but definitely the sensorial part of it and the immersive one, I'm sure it'll improve the learning curve, and it's just you're gonna have better training, better performance. All right, and so I'm just wondering, this question goes for everyone, it's an open one. How would you say XR solutions enhance decision-making in critical contexts?
Actually, that's such a great question, because when we talk about XR in training, we often focus on engagement and realism, but decision-making is where XR actually truly shines. One of the things we love about immersive training is that it allows people to practice thinking, not just doing. They are placed in complex, often high-risk environments where every choice has a consequence, but it's all simulated. There's no danger, no cost, no harm, and that opens the door to deep reflective learning. In XR4HRC, we specifically designed scenarios around this idea. For example, we created virtual safety zones around the robot. if a user accidentally steps into a danger zone, the system responds visually and audibly, and that moment becomes a powerful learning trigger. And what's even more interesting is that some participants learned more from their mistakes in the virtual world than from correctly completing the task the first time. The freedom to fail safely creates a different kind of muscle memory. And over time, we noticed something. People who went through XR training were not just performing better, they were making better decisions faster when we observed them in follow-up tasks. And that tells us XR doesn't just teach procedures, it builds judgment and confidence. So in critical environments, whether it's robotics, aviation, or I don't know, healthcare, that's a huge advantage. You're not just teaching people what to do, you're preparing them to handle the unexpected.
That's very interesting because you are directly studying and seeing the impact of the XR while having these perceptions, and preparing your brain to these critical contexts. You're having a better learning. It's just best. All right, so not sure if you have any input, CARATE team, but this one.
When you look at decision making, I think it's all about data, about making informed decisions. And XR, the medium per se, is a fantastic resource in that context, but it's also an extremely challenging resource. So when you look at, for example, information visualization, for many years, the 3D space has been left a bit at the side because it's so difficult to interact with, it's so difficult to operate with that. And I think that is quite recently changing. With one of my doctoral students, Yuko Suzuki, for example, we're investigating the possibilities for scientific data visualization in the XR space and how we can make use of this new form factor, that we can have many windows, that we can create things like an evidence wall, that we can look at different data representations, maybe just in 2D, like a traditional screen, but without the limits of the normal screen real estate, so that you can plaster your environment with as many of them as you would like. So we have actually run some eye tracking studies that give us the answer to the question of how many is too many. And the answer seems to be, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many of these windows we use in analysis, in decision making, in visual analytics, in immersive analytics, as long as we support efficient navigation between them, and as long as we use the touch-ups and the interrelatedness between the different corners of such an evidence wall. So what practical implication does that have for us in CARATE? It certainly is something that we look at on the roadmap, the possibility to integrate into our digital twins framework, Gemini, the capabilities to visualize data coming streaming from Internet of Things devices, from machines that can talk, from robots that participate in that space. Certainly so. And I think there is kind of the next generation of digital twins coming that is already visible on the horizon, that would have such capabilities, that you can interact with real data and support human decision making in a way that we need it, and in a way that it does not fight the old teething problems of VR data visualization, where the trade-off of using the medium in 3D versus the effort you have to put into the perceptual load you're actually generating, the cognitive load hidden between unknown formats, are not or no longer a blocker as they have been in the past. So there's certainly an opportunity arising, I think, for making use of this in unprecedented ways, and maybe in better ways.
Yeah, beautiful. It's amazing how by analyzing the biometrical part of the humans trying your prototypes, you're able to make more research, and it opens the door for even a brighter projects there. And it's also very, it makes you reflect on nowadays with ChatGPT or AI with assistants, let's say sometimes we become more lazy when making decisions, even because we are already we're confident that the AI it's gonna make the right decision. But I feel like as you are explaining all these matters, it feels like XR and your projects are gonna adapt themselves to the human so that they can develop a better decision making process, right? Right, now let's switch. Oh, sorry, Fridolin, would you like to say something?
Just thought I add, we use the IEEE Experience API to log performance data of trainers and trainees that we encounter in our extended reality training solution, so that in an endpoint, in a dashboard, the performance data can be aggregated and inspected to see where are the difficulties, what helped, what didn't work, is the content the right content maybe, and things like that. So that is an outspoken recommendation to work with technologies like that to the whole sector, that we also quite prominently made in a CEN workshop agreement and in an IEEE standard called EP29 ARLEM, the augmented reality learning experience model. So the generic recommendation is it is very straightforward to interface these new types of learning training systems with the existing enterprise landscape, so that everything works together and performance analytics, learning analytics can be aggregated into a separate dashboard together with all the other relevant information.
All right, so let's switch on to the third part. This time it's on the co-creation, pilots, and results. You were already presenting a bit or introducing out your prototypes, but to the CARATE team. So the CARATE project involves a co-design process with Altec and the ESI Astronaut Center. So how does involving end users shape the development of your XR tools?
Perhaps I can take that. When I did actually join the commission, the first thing that they did tell me about ICT, it was the interface, the user interface. I mean, everybody was going on, we have to make the user interface more friendly. It was about everything because, it was at the time on the beginning of the internet, all these new applications were actually coming in, and everybody was really, really, really going to make everything simple. When I left the commission 30 years later, it was exactly the same thing. We have to make the user experience nice so that actually people will be attracted to actually use the technology. And I think this one is one of the challenges, of AR. Now, we are fully aware of that, and therefore we had a lot of demonstrations to, say, astronauts and as well as some other users to see their reaction. Now, the reaction was, wow, that's cool, you see? But the question, it was also, of course, there were a lot of steps until it became cool. When you did put on the glasses, there were a lot of steps to go through, and sometimes they were not easy. But I will say that we are progressing. We still have some way to actually go, but we are progressing. And generally, what we find, every user that we have shown the system, they were quite excited about the prospect.
What helped also is we're following the steps proposed in the XR2LEARN framework. So the ADDI process, the long-standing ADDI process, from analysis to design to development to implementation to evaluation. We're going through that cyclically, improving the system bit by bit, studying, of course, what our target group needs and requires, and sometimes asking the right questions to tickle it out of them. But then developing designs to which we get initial feedback, prototyping, building, and using, and continuously feeding back from the evaluation. So for the content that we represent in our model, we follow then the other part of the XR2LEARN framework, the Assure model, so that we analyze the learners, state standards and objectives, select the right media types, or we call them augmentations, the right augmentation types that should be in each step of the training material to be presented. Then we use it, we utilize it, and yeah, of course, we require learner participation in the evaluation and revision and feedback into a cycle.
Well, but you're quite advanced, let me tell you, because the XR2LEARN project is not that old. So, I mean, you're progressing really fast, or at least feels like.
I'm a technology-enhanced learning researcher, so these models are trialed and tested, so they're not just something that emerged in recent years. They are long-standing recommendations that have been refined over decades of research. So I'm not surprised that our thinking aligned immediately with the framework when it came out. That's not a coincidence. That is just what happens.
Right, Berk. And well, XR for HRC is already preparing for market readiness. So could you walk us through what the phase looks like, and have you already tested your solution?
We are currently in the phase where we are preparing XR for HRC for broader adoption, and that process has involved a mix of validation and outreach. We piloted XR for HRC with academic and industrial partners, including companies in manufacturing, automotive, and plastics, as well as safety consultants. Their feedback showed us the system could be flexibly adapted across sectors. And what we found was that XR for HRC is highly adaptable. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It can be tailored to different workflow, risk levels, and even job roles. That kind of flexibility is something industrial partners really appreciated. And here's where the XR2LEARN tools came in, actually. LS Group's Interact enabler and the XR2LEARN marketplace were instrumental in helping us create and distribute customized content quickly. It made collaboration between technical teams and subject matter experts much smoother. And on the learning side, the feedback we received was consistently positive. Trainers told us that the immersive format made it easier to explain complex operations, and learners, especially those without experience, said they felt more engaged and more confident after using the solution. So right now we are working on streamlining deployment, expanding content libraries, and making the solution even easier to use across different sectors and different settings. The goal is to make XR for HRC not just a good demo, but a usable and a scalable tool for real training programs.
Awesome. So now linked with what we just touched, let's talk from XR to market. So, Fridolin, how do you see CARATE evolving after the XR2LEARN program and their support?
We are looking at a phase of growth where we're growing the company in Ireland, in Dublin, to further our mission in space. So we are working on some proposals for space directly, but at the same time we look to grow also in the other verticals, in related areas into which we could easily break into, and that with big plans, big aspirations, so that we ultimately for the space part play our tiny little role in contributing to the next big mission, of course. And was very interesting in that context to also see the reaction of the astronauts and astronaut trainers that we had been in contact with over the course of through our collaborators at the European Astronaut Center and ALTIC, that even if things sometimes look difficult, you can see when it has reached this quality of engagement where you see somebody switch into their teaching mode, explaining to a student in Norway certain components of the Columbus module of the International Space Station in the mock-up, in the physical mock-up, transmitted remotely to Trondheim, and they're just enjoying it. They're just enjoying the show, and that was something where I could see we're on to something. This is really working. This really flies, and yeah, I'm confident that we will see the fruits of our labor here in the near future as we expand.
Beyond, you see, the European Space Agency and also ESTEC, of course, there are a lot of private companies that they now go to space. This one is a very good opportunity because they do go to space for a very short period. They want some training. They don't want the training to be too expensive. And in, say, that respect, I would say that the CARATE solution, it could actually provide them with something that they can really use almost immediately at very low cost.
Yeah, this is just great. Having such a positive impact and very fast might have felt enriching when seeing your solution having like actual results to keep going. All right, Berk, how does XR for HRC fit this time into your company's broader leader technology innovation strategy? Do you have any plans for scaling?
Yes, actually, the project itself has really become a cornerstone in shaping how we think about XR at LTG. And when we started the project, we saw it as an opportunity to apply immersive tech to a specific problem. But what we ended up with was more than just a one-off solution. It helped us rethink how we design learning tools across the board. One of the biggest takeaways for us that scenario-based XR training works, and not just for robotics, it can be applied to many other domains like industrial maintenance, machine operation, quality control, and even onboarding for new staff. So what we are doing now is taking the core principles and extending them into other areas. The main direction we are heading in this development of a no-code XR scenario editor, the idea is to give trainers who may not be developers the ability to create and modify training modules on their own. That kind of flexibility is essential if we want XR adoption to scale beyond tech-savvy early adopters. So yes, XR for HRC was our entry point, but it's now the foundation for a much broader strategy that blends immersive technology, usability, and educational impact. We are aiming to turn it into a platform, not just a project.
Yeah, it's great to what you mentioned about trainers being the ones also modifying the models, because they can be the ones seeing certain gaps that could be improved there. So I mean, it's already circularity here, I see. And to y'all, how can Cascade funding help bridge those gaps, perhaps in the near future as well, for future projects?
Cascade funding per se, I think, reduces for the participating partners the administrative overheads and creates smaller consortia, if at all consortia. In our case, we teamed up with one partner. That reduces the kind of overhead cost that we have, and for us was a very efficient way of managing the project. So it certainly has its big advantages in that respect. Cuts the whole red tape short, allows us to execute a project very efficiently, with very good value for money, while at the same time still being embedded in a wider context of a bigger project. And that certainly is the very positive thing about Cascade funding.
Indeed. It's just great having this mechanism directly support, say, third parties to directly apply innovation for the near future. Right. So as we look towards the future of immersive learning now, what excites you most about the intersection of XR and education? Do you see XR becoming standard in your fields?
When asked that, sometimes I say XR is the answer to AI, and then of course I'm making it a little bit too simple. But in a certain respect, the disruption that we encounter in all sectors at the moment with the availability of generative AI, this effortless creation of something that looks smart and sometimes is smart as well, it kind of gets counterbalanced, I think, with a stronger focus on skills, a stronger focus on the human element in training, and a stronger focus then also on the accountability, on non-textual evidence of that he can do something by the book. And in that respect, XR is the answer. And when I say that makes it a bit too simple, then of course XR uses AI as well, and XR loves AI, and it should be one to its benefit. But in a certain respect, I think it is a dichotomous relation. It's a building block of XR, but it is also in the wider socioeconomic scope part of the answer to the disruption that we're facing.
Yeah, I agree. I see with you. I mean, whenever technology just becomes sister with one another, it's just for the better, and they're gonna enhance each other features. So definitely, it's awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, CARATE and Berk, for your time and well, bringing these awesome projects that you're already developing for the future training and future of education. Let's move on to the closure of the episode. We're gonna go play this little game and tradition that we have in Efecto Cascada. Unless you'd like to mention something else before we move on to this other section.
And maybe a small bit. I think at the moment, the initiative in Europe that we want to create a more open ecosystem around virtual worlds is significant. I think this is a necessary and important step to make sure we widen the ecosystem, we scale up the ecosystem, we widen the access to technology like that, and further the cause of creating a real metaverse that is the unity of anything physical and anything digital. Without an initiative that puts emphasis on the openness, on an open ecosystem in which smaller entities such as ours and many others, the heartblood of the European economy, SMEs, without that emphasis, without that guarantor on a European level of making a push towards more fairness, more openness, I think it would be very hard to achieve. So I think the next 5 years, this is certainly a major partnership initiative within the European Commission, and it is equipped well with funding streams. It will be hopefully an endeavor that leads to more use of XR at scale for the support of humans, while at the same time enhancing the business that happens in that sector and stimulating growth.
Yeah, I see. And well, let's hope your message reach the right people. And I was just gonna ask, I remember Stephan, someone who's who's embedded in XR across Europe. Do you think Europe is doing right building this XR ecosystem for the moment?
Of course, I mean, it is a sort of a technology, I would say, that it has a lot of applications, and with the right guidance, with the right direction, and to put the funding in the right companies in the right place, I think we could get some results, because at the end of the day, I mean, why does the European taxpayers pay for this kind of developments is because at the end of the day, we need to have exports, which means employment. I mean, that's really the reason. And I see this as one of the areas that we can excel. And we're really good at it. Now, the question is that if they will put the necessary money and so that companies like ours, because it's the problem that we have, is that we have the ideas, we have the brains, we have the will, and we work very, very hard. At the end of the day, we have a prototype, which it works, but we need to have the funding to actually make this prototype market ready, and at the same time to have all the kind of the cover of marketing, advertising, a lot of things. And that is what I think there's the gap is, you see. It's not only the technology. I think we have to have also some sort of assistance for the next stage. And that is what I think that you could really look at the possibility. You do finance, of course, the first stage, say 300,000, which is absolutely great. I mean, it's a great initiative. And I must say, my congratulations to you, because it is somebody's lump sum. It really cuts down the bureaucracy very radically, whilst it maintains the accountability. We still are accountable for public money, but nevertheless, the bureaucracy is being minimized. But what I would suggest is that you have a second stage so that you will finance then from the prototype until the market model, as it were, the product, the minimum viable product, if I can say so. So that would be my recommendations.
Yeah, accompany the project and the team till the market readiness. I see. Well, that's rather interesting fact. I've never heard, but it makes sense, definitely. It's great having this mechanism also for, let's say, smaller agents, because it used to be for the sake of supporting large enterprises or companies, but now we're having, let me tell you, we've interviewed last year other programs in XR as well, and it's very enriching seeing that the European Commission and Horizon Europe and many other programs are trusting these initiatives. Well, because there's nothing else. We just have to evolve into new technologies and adapt ourselves to a new world. But yeah, thank you for your inputs and for what you're doing. And let's hope that as you were saying, 5 years from now, we'll already have each one of us perhaps XR applied onto our workstations or schools, many other fields. Right, but let's shift right now onto the last section. So this is how the game's gonna go. So first, I'm gonna, raise a question that was posed by the previous guest. So any of you who feels like can answer it, and then you'll have the ball in your hands and you'll be the one, raising a question for the next one. So I'll start, putting the question onto the table. So Antonella Passani, she's a researcher from T6 Ecosystems in Italy. Her question is, what is your favorite water-related place that makes you feel at home?
Actually, we have a seaside ancient city in my hometown, Muğla. It is called also Turkish Riviera. And there's a small town named Datça, and we have this ancient city, Knidos. And it's so beautiful. It's just near the city, near the sea, and it's located in the meeting point of Mediterranean Sea and Aegean Sea.
Oh, wow! I see. I imagine. I'll search later, but I imagine like a colorful mix of blue water and the shore. Awesome. Then there's this other one by Sarah Tamulski. She was the other guest on the last episode. And her question is, what is the most unexpected twist your career has taken?
In my 20s, I had a back injury playing volleyball, and that caused one of my discs to protrude into my spine and actually made me paralyzed on my left leg. So I had quite some time to think in between the diagnosis, the pain, and the surgery I had. At that point in time, I decided that my heart is with research, and I'd rather finish my degree, and find a research assistant post, which I did in Vienna. So that's a twist, literally, that caused that. And
yeah. Sorry for that, but well, it's a very touching story. And well, unluckily you had that accident, but it made you follow what your heart told you, right? Okay, so now for Mikhail and Stephan, you can be the ones raising a question for the next one, or there's this other thing, you can also give a piece of advice to the audience and a fun fact.
The advice basically to the audience is to really sort of try to use technology, but not addictively. I think technology, it has its place, and this is an important place, but at the same time, the human interactions, they are very, very important. And as they say up in Scandinavia, they say, don't let the path between your houses grow grass. Because as you know, they do live apart in Scandinavia. The houses are not near each other. They are very huge distances. And like, therefore, you have to actually walk to your neighbor very, very often, despite that it's far from you. So use technology, use it actually wisely, but don't neglect the human contact and relations.
Wow, lovely. Thank you for that sentence and lesson as well. it's yeah.
Thinking about it. So we at the Open University, we've just inaugurated new Open XR studios that we built with £6 million, which includes a virtual production stage, Mandalorian style, where we film against the backdrop of a game engine on a huge 12-meter long screen or something like that. We have a big motion capture area, and we also have a volumetric video studio where we film people with a lot of cameras surrounding you. And for some of these technologies, we use LiDAR cameras, time-of-flight sensors that basically measure the distance of the dot that you're of the pixel that you're scanning, how far away from the camera it really is for the reconstruction of 3D. And fun fact, there are certain conditioners that reflect worse on the laser LiDAR scan than the optical cameras would. So you have then a situation where the optical image and the 3D shape cannot be recomposed. So it creates weird artifacts. That's something that we found out over the years. There are certain types of conditioners that don't work. I wouldn't know which one. Probably would call for research, and then again would probably be a candidate for the Ig Nobel Prize.
I'm just wondering, how did you find out? Like, how did you realize it was the conditioner?
You see that the hair doesn't work, and there's nothing specific about the hair. We know that like curly hair has difficulties. So if you have locks, like we used to have, then they not necessarily scan well because hair is very fine and you can't see them. But when you have quite long hair like yours, and you can see that there's nothing evident why it shouldn't work, but on the scans you just see holes in your head. And, you start asking questions.
Okay. So you better not wash your hair then, or go to the session ready.
The recommendation by the technician was you use a spray. So not acrylic, but there are kind of anti-glare sprays that you can actually apply, and that's how you bypass that problem if you ever need to.
It is a fun fact indeed. You always learn something in this part of the podcast, honestly. Yeah. All right, so what's your question going to be for the next guest?
My favorite philosophical question of the month is, does the metaverse exist when you're not looking?
Oh, that goes into the philosophical way of it. Yeah.
I argue not. I don't think it does.
Even not the metaverse, but I mean, does reality exist whenever you're not
exactly
looking?
that is
right?
the question. Does reality?
Because I think there's a physics event or theory, right? I do not currently have the name with me, but there's related with dimensions and let me just check it.
Model of the universe, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Some theoretical physics models as well, but even on a kind of secondary school level, Heisenbergsche Unschärfe says that you can't measure an electron, the speed of an electron and the location at the same time. It's not possible, and that led to this Schrödinger cat example. It's half alive. I think there is something about the way the metaverse is supposed to work or supposed to come into existence that makes me question it. So can the metaverse really be there if there's no one observing it? Because if the metaverse is the unity of a digital representation and something physical, can it exist without an observer? Just practically, probably not, because you need a camera or something there, or some sort of sensor. So I'm leaning towards no, but as said, it's not settled.
Depends on the definition of existence. You see, how do you define to exist? You do exist because I perceive you to exist, because otherwise you don't exist, you see. So it's quite a deep discussion there.
I'm just your fantasy.
No, thank you for your question. I think it perfectly ties the whole episode, because we're combining digital worlds with XR as well, and the whole immersive part of it all. So I think we've reached the end. Thank you to all you guest speakers, and that's a wrap on now immersive roundtable of Efecto Cascada. So huge thanks to you, Fridolin, Mikhail, Stephan, Berk, for sharing your visionary work and the lessons learned from building the future to training, and from outer space to industry and factory floors. So, these projects prove that Europe's innovation pulse beats strongly when deep tech meets real-world needs. And, Cascade funding is actually helping make it happen. So stay tuned for more episodes. Subscribe to your favorite platform. As you know, we are releasing this episode on all streaming platforms from Spotify to YouTube, because this is a video podcast. And make sure to follow us, and so that you don't miss any upcoming episodes or innovations that you may be part of. So until next time, Splotters, let's keep innovating all together. See you.